welcome back to another episode of Everyday Bubbly. We got me, Taylor, for another solo episode today, and as always, I am so happy to be here with you guys. I love getting to podcast, I love getting to chat with you, love getting to hang out with my best friend and just talk about topics that are so relevant and so important for the place that we are in our lives right now. And again, love getting to share that with you and hearing all the feedback from you guys and the audience and listeners and even social media followers. Just having you guys on our side is so fun, and we are so grateful for you. I know last week you guys had Allegra for a solo episode all about becoming a diabetic dog mom. As you guys are well aware, she's been traveling. She has been gallivanting across Napa, which has been so fun, and I'm only 55% jealous if we're being so honest. And since she's been traveling, I'm also going to do my solo episode. Don't worry though, we'll be back with a couple of joint episodes again next week. We have some guests coming up, and yeah, it's just, we got a good run of things going on here. We're so pumped about it. I know I've said that 3 times in the last 30 seconds, but we really are just so excited about everything that's been going on with the podcast and with you guys. All right. So before we dive into today's episode, you know what our usual is. We talk about what we're cheersing with. And I'm going to be so honest, I have the most boring beverage cheers that's ever existed in maybe the entire world. We got a mason jar full of water. I mean, I will say I did zhuzh it up a little, not a lot. Let's not kid ourselves. We added a little bit of a squeeze of fresh lemon juice, some Redmond's salt, some natural salt for a little bit of that minerals and electrolytes. Just want to make sure that we're hydrating well. I feel I actually just saw this on the Every Girl. I don't know if y'all follow the Every Girl, but they were just posting that apparently there's a new trend going around that's called sexy water. We're also supposed to be drinking sexy water, which just means water with shit in it. I mean not literal shit obviously, but just water that's not plain water. And if that's the trend and that's what it takes to get people to drink water, I am all here for it. I actually did zhuzh mine up a little bit. I got a new straw from Nordstrom, and it's so basic. It's so such a small detail, but it makes drinking my water at least 10% more fun. And honestly, I feel I drink my water faster. I drink more water when I have a straw, as opposed to just drinking it out of the jar. So let's take a quick sip. And it's always fun when you've zhuzhed up your water and you forgot about it. I truly had forgotten that I put lemon in here earlier today, and I took a sip and was very surprised by what I was tasting. So yeah, that's what we got for what we're drinking today. So we know what we're cheersing with. What are we cheersing to today? I am cheersing to this super fun event that I went to over the weekend. You guys may have seen some highlights about it on some little teasers on the Instagram, but I went to Dear Media IRL. For those of you who don't know, Dear Media is a podcast network. They're actually headquartered here in Austin. If you've heard of Lauren Bostic and Skinny Confidential, then I'm sure you are very familiar with Dear Media. But Dear Media is a podcast network, like I said, that champions female voices, female creators, female entrepreneurs, all of that jazz. And they hosted in real life IRL retreat on Saturday, and it was so fulfilling and so heartwarming, and it was amazing. Allie was actually supposed to go with me, but we did not get dates right for her trip to Napa and the date of this event. But it was so cool. It was so well run. There were photo ops galore. Everything was done for the girlies. It was fantastic. I sat in on a few different panels. So there were 5 panels, I believe, throughout the entire day. All of the speakers were podcast hosts from the network, from the Dear Media network. The first one was really cool. It was a wellness, self-care, just wellness-focused Q&A panel. Lauren Bostic was the moderator for that. Then there was one about turning your passions into a career, kind of like what we're trying to do here with Everyday Bubbly. There's one on rediscovering your personal style. What was another one? There was one just with Lauren and Michael and about how like sometimes you can't have it all. It was just really cool. There was lunch was catered, there were drinks, there was coffee, there was breakfast. They had snacks throughout the entire day. I bought this adorable charm necklace from Heart, the sister duo out of Charleston. They had a little booth set up where you could pick your charms, pick your chain, and they literally like put it together for you right in front of your face. It was such a cool thing. And I've been wanting a charm necklace for a while, and I just hadn't found the right pieces, and honestly, their pieces nailed it. So, HART, I'll put a link in the show notes, but you guys will love if you see it. And it was just like a really, really cool, really well-run event. We'll definitely be going next year. It was also just really cool. I mean, even though I am a podcaster, Allie and I are podcasters, we're still such newbies in this space. And we have so many expanders and like people that we look up to that we really try to like almost not emulate per se, but are just really big expanders for us in this podcast space. And it's just so cool to see what people are capable of when they put their mind to it and just like kind of get the work done. And it was just like almost a trippy experience to be able to put faces and bodies to the voices that I've been hearing in my ears for so long. Like some of these podcasts I've been a big fan of for such a long time. Balanced Black Girl by Les Alfred, I believe is her last name. I've been listening to that probably since 2018, 2019, off and on, like pre-pandemic. And she's relatively new to the Dear Media Network, but it was just so cool to be able to see her and hear her and like interact with her. All of the speakers came down and did photos with people, just kind of chatted. There were Q&A portions at the end of every panel, so you were able to like ask these burning questions. And it was, again, I like cannot speak highly enough of this event. I thought it was so well done. The only thing that I would say I would love to see more diversity in the network, period. I mean, I mentioned Les from Balanced Black Girl, but there's not a lot of like people of color within the network. But yeah, that would really be my only point of feedback is like I'd love to see a little bit more of a diverse panel. I love seeing all these like small pretty white girls, but sometimes it's nice to just like get a little bit of a different take on things. So again, was super excited to see that, super excited to be there. I think this will be an annual thing. I mean, this was their second time putting it on. I'm so lucky that I get to live in Austin and it was here. I know people have traveled from like Toronto or Michigan or so far away to come to this event, and I feel so grateful to just be in Austin and have driven 15 minutes from my house in order to be here. We'll definitely be attending next year, so hopefully we'll be able to do like maybe a little mini meetup with some listeners if anybody else is in town prior to that happening. Oh, actually, and I have a second cheers of the week. I was going in so hard with this Dear Media IRL, but you guys know that Allie and I lurv ACL Live, Austin City Limits Live, the music festival, happens here in Austin every October, 2 weekends, like first 2 weekends of October. Well, lineup just dropped on Tuesday. Let me pull it up. The lineup was so good. And I literally, Allie sent me a screenshot of it and I texted back. I'm like, I'm annoyed that I like this lineup because I didn't want to buy a 3-day ticket, but now I feel like I might have to buy a 3-day ticket. It's so good. Headliners, we've got Dua Lipa, Blink-182, Pretty Lights, Leon Bridges. We've got Norah Jones, Renee Rapp, Teddy Swims. I've been very into Teddy Swims lately. I don't know if anybody else, I mean, clearly other people have popped onto that. Fletcher, Porter Robinson, Chapel Rowan. I'm not a huge Orville Peck person, but I know that Allie is a big fan. Some of his songs have been on our Song of the Weeks before. We've got Jess Glynn, San Holo, Vince Staples. Like, the list goes on. And like I said, I'm annoyed that I like this lineup so much. Like, last year's lineup, it was fine. It was fun. We had a great time going. But, like, this is going to be next level, you guys. I cannot tell you how excited I am. So, yeah, those are my cheers of the weeks. I love Dear Media IRL and ACL Live lineup dropping. Yeah, it's community. It's bringing people together. It's getting that excitement flowing. It's just, there's something when you get a group of people in the same place who all care about the same things. The energy is just so palpable. And I just love that feeling, and I cannot wait for ACL now. Holy shit. Okay, so that is our introduction to the episode. You're probably like, oh my god, Taylor, we get it. Like, what are we even talking about this week? This week, we are talking about all things wellness. If any of you guys know me in real life, you know that I am a wellness girl through and through. Nothing makes me happier than researching supplements or wandering the health food aisle at HEB or just like going to a yoga class or whatever. Like insert wellness thing here. I love it. I'm obsessed. So I wanted to spend this time talking about like what it means. I think that wellness in a few different forms is a very popular hot topic right now. And I think it's easy to get so caught up in how it gets talked about on social media and around you. And it's easy to lose what wellness means to you and like redefining wellness for yourself, just because what my version of wellness is doesn't necessarily mean that it's Allie's version of wellness or your version of wellness or my boyfriend's version of wellness. Like I think one thing that comes up so often in this podcast is like, do what works for you. Everything is so unique. Everybody is so individual, and it's not fair to expect what works for one person to work for everybody. That being said, I do still want to share my perspective on wellness and how it may have changed over the years, and how you can maybe find elements of what's worked for me that will work for you. Maybe it'll be a little bit of inspiration. Yeah, we got a lot to uncover with all things wellness. So first off, like what is wellness? Like how do I define wellness? How do you define wellness? To me, wellness is about like trying to make my body feel as good as it possibly can. It's less about, and I actually made a thread about this now that we're thread girlies. I made a thread about this the other day, but like wellness oftentimes comes across, again, on social media and in real life too, as trying to fix yourself, as trying to bring, like there's something about what you're doing is wrong, but if you did these 3 wellness tips, you would be right. You would be perfect. You would be good. And this, like there's this like weird, magical, mystical version of yourself that does everything properly and has a 6-pack and can run a half marathon and never eats McDonald's or whatever. And like that is a perfect wellness version of yourself. And I don't think that's accurate. I don't think that's realistic or fair or like a good way to treat yourself. There is no perfect version of you. You don't need to be fixed. You just need to kind of come home to yourself and do what makes your body feel good. And again, what that means is like so different for every person. I think there's 3 elements to wellness. I think there's like physical wellness, which is maybe that is exercise, that is lifting weights, that is your running, yoga, Pilates, strength training, whatever. There's mental wellness, which comes back to having that quiet time inside of yourself and feeling really confident in who you are, being present, I think is a large part of mental wellness. And then there's also spiritual wellness, which does not mean religion, and if religion is your thing, then like by all means have at it, go for the gold. But for me, spiritual wellness is more about like, is very closely tied in with mental wellness, but it's more of that coming home to yourself and like feeling in connection or in union with maybe a higher power, if that's your bag, or just the people around you. So spiritual wellness, I think, is more outward focused, whereas mental wellness, if we're looking at the differentiation between the two, is a little bit more internal and how your brain is processing things and how your almost like mental fortitude is. So those are the 3 elements that I think of when I think of wellness. So physical, mental, spiritual. Again, my version of wellness has changed so much over the years. I think I started out when I was much, much younger. I was very lucky that I was able to explore some aspects and angles of wellness from a young age. My mom would take me to yoga classes with her when I was little. We would go to Pilates. Like physical, spiritual wellness was very much a part of my life from a very young age. I think when you're a high schooler in college, that sort of stuff, you get so caught up in all the distractions around you that it kind of faded a little bit, and I ended up focusing way more on what I thought physical wellness needed to be, which was being, not that I've ever been like large, but like being really thin and skinny and having the perfect body I mean, I think we are all grew up in the age where it was like, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. And everybody had like a low-key eating disorder. I remember joking about, yikes, maybe in retrospect, maybe not actually funny, but joking about it with my college roommate, be like, oh yeah, we're being like, have you met my friend Anna? Like, we're being so Anna tonight. Like, we did not have eating disorders, but we were like, oh, we skipped the Cheetos at this event today. Like, oh my god, we're being so Anna. Like, and just that kind of like fucked up mentality when it comes to physical wellness. Like, being skinny does not mean that you are physically fit or well or doing great things. Like, there is such a thing as skinny fat. Like, that's we could have a whole topic just about like physical images and like the mental weight of your physical body on yourself. But we won't get into that. We'll save that one for another day. But like, I think I got really caught up in physical wellness. After I graduated college, I had gained some weight. I mean, most of us probably have gained some weight and got really into trying to come back to what I thought was a healthy weight for myself at the time from those BMI calculators, which they didn't really know anything. We all know now that BMI is so flawed, but was so obsessed with like trying to hit this number. I started running races. I started with 5Ks, worked myself up to a couple of half marathons. From there, I got into weightlifting. And during this whole time, like, yoga was something that happened in the occasional background for me. I think because I started at such a young age, it was always a part of me, but it was never something that I had focused on. And if I did, it was only for how it could make me feel physically as opposed to anything else. I was all in on physical. Started CrossFit, did Olympic weightlifting, like just hammered my body into the ground. I think in the past few years, maybe it was like really 2020 with just the world closing, we all had our perspectives switched a little bit and it became much more of a holistic thing for me. Again, I think I had done yoga teacher training actually in 2016. We learned a lot about the philosophy behind it. I had taken yoga classes, the philosophy of yoga classes in college as well. So I think I was at a point in my life where more of the slowing down started happening and I started caring a little bit more about my spiritual wellness and my mental well-being. And I think I'm at a place now, again, this is all a journey. You've never like discovered peak wellness, like that's just not a thing. But I'm at a place now where I think it's a really good harmony of the three of them, of that physical, mental, spiritual thing. And I have different practices that help with different areas of those three buckets. I have some practices will help with multiple, like maybe 2 or 3. Like, again, coming back to yoga just because it is such a constant. Like, yoga is something that's so good for my mental wellness because it makes me slow down and just like chill out a little bit more, stops me from being so high strung. My physical wellness because I'm moving my body, I'm like activating my energy. And also, honestly, my spiritual wellness in that I'm like connecting with a greater thing than just myself. I'm connecting with the people who are in class with me, with the instructor, all of that. So that's kind of how wellness has evolved for me personally. I think, and I mentioned this a little while ago, but I think the wellness industry right now is so caught up in like trying to fix us, to try and make you know that if you follow this 5-step program, if you drink this green juice, if you eat 6 almonds a day or 2 Brazil nuts or whatever the current hot thing is, that it'll take away all of your bloating. You'll never feel bad again. You'll never cry. Everything will just come and just be like at your doorstep. And I think that's like such a toxic idea because it prevents it from being a wellness journey and it turns things more into just a wellness destination, which just isn't realistic. I mentioned like the 3 parts of wellness that I think of, like spiritual, mental, physical. And I also think that there's 2 parts. There's just these 3 parts, but there's also like the inside versus the outside. So the mental and the spiritual part of wellness is very much the internal part of things. The physical can be that outside part. And I think that it's so easy to get caught up in the external wellness. I talked about how when I was in college, and even like right after I graduated college, wellness for me was so much about like, what's my mile time? What does the number on the scale say? Like, how do these genes fit? And I think that it's so dangerous to get caught up on that. And I'm not saying that those things aren't important to you. If knowing what your pant size is important to you, and it's something that you're like, okay, like I am a size X, and then I know that if I'm a size Y, I don't feel like my version of my best self, and that is the indicator you use to just kind of keep yourself on track. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's totally fine. It's totally normal. It's totally healthy. It's when you're like, oh no, I hate myself at an X, but if I got down to a Z, then I would love myself. And I'm sorry to say, but like that is, it's not going to happen if you, it's just not going to happen. And I think that it's so easy to get caught up in like comparisonitis, where like you look at your friends, or you look at all these people on social, and you're like, oh my god, like they're a size whatever, like look at their abs, like they look so skinny when they're on the beach, like if I was that skinny I would have X, Y, and Z. And it's just so easy to get caught up in that loop. It's also really easy, going back to like the pant size example, to get really down on yourself and like beat yourself up if you do change pant size or if something happens. There's, like I said, there's that balance between physical, mental, spiritual well-being. And maybe sometimes your physical is the most important part to you, but sometimes it's that the other side of that coin, that internal part of wellness, that's really important. And it's more about like finding things that nourish your mind and your spirit, whether that's yoga, whether that's reading nonfiction books and spending time with loved ones. Like there are so many elements that go into nourishing yourself. I mentioned that my definition of wellness has changed so much over the past, I'll be 35 this year, so let's say since I've been like an aware person, over the last 20 years even, over the last 20 months, my idea of wellness has changed so much. So I did want to share a few of the things that are helping me right now with wellness in those 3 buckets. So in terms of physical wellness, something that's been really important to me, that will continue, I hope, to be really important to me, is just movement. And that doesn't mean maxing out my back squat 3 times a week like I used to do, which there was a time and place for that, and I loved it, and I have very few regrets about that phase of my life. My knees maybe have a few regrets. I don't have that many. But it's just movement. Waking up in the morning and going on a walk first thing is like almost a non-negotiable for me at this point. Even if I'm on vacation, being able to like walk around the block or hop on a treadmill or something like that is really important. Eating foods that are green. I used to not really be a big vegetable girl, but like having a few greens a day is critical. Even if, again, if I'm on vacation, finding that salad. I'm not as great about eating fruit, I will say. That's something I'm trying to get much better at. So if you guys have any suggestion or tips or tricks about how to actually like make yourself like fruit, please let me know. Finding exercise that you like. I have mentioned yoga. If this was a drinking game and you drank every time I said yoga, you would be blackout by this point, so I am very sorry. But also Pilates is something that's a little bit newer to me, but it's just a really nice way to move my body and just get that energy flowing and still feel really strong in my body. I do still lift weights occasionally. I have a squat rack in the garage that it's nice to just throw on the barbell, throw on like very lightweight, and just knock a couple squats out, do some strict press, and just like feel how strong my body can be. Those are all really important things for me in terms of my physical well-being. In terms of my mental well-being, things that are really important and kind of keep me grounded again are meditation. I try to meditate daily. I'm not always great about it. I'm just not gonna lie. I'm just not always so good about it. Something that's helped me recently, though, is I discovered a new meditation platform. Jordan Younger, she's the Balanced Blonde on Instagram. She has a podcast called Soul on Fire. She recently launched a meditation platform, and it's been so nice to just kind of have that guided meditation experience. She has a whole slew of like affirmations, motivation for the day, friendship ones, physical well-being ones, healing from chronic illness ones, and they're all like very, very targeted meditations, and I've been really loving her platform. They have from like 2 minutes all the way up to like 45 minutes, so it's just cool to like feel what is good for that day. I do tend to do those while I'm walking, kind of a double whammy there. That's been really important. Journaling, I talk about that a lot on the podcast as well, but journaling is something that I found is super helpful for me. I'm not always consistent about that either, but I find that when I leave it on my nightstand and I reach for it first thing before my phone, even before I get out of bed, it's a little bit easier to just get a couple of pages written down. And sometimes it's a paragraph, sometimes it's like a full 3 pages. It's just wherever my brain is that day and what it needs. Those are some of my really big tips for mental wellness. Also, spending time with my friends, with my loved ones, spending time with Nick. Maybe we go on a walk together, hitting that physical wellness bucket again. Or maybe it's spending time getting drinks with Allie. Doing the podcast is really good for my mental wellness because it's dedicated time having like real, true conversations with one of my best friends, and I think that's so important. Reaching out to friends, all of that is really, really big for me right now with my mental wellness. In terms of spiritual wellness, I think, again, yoga and meditation are really big parts of that. I also found a studio recently here in Austin called Lizard Yoga that is very spiritual wellness focused. There's a lot of sound baths. There's a lot of just like moving with your body, less of yoga being an active workout and more yoga being the conduit to connection with other people, which I really love. That's been really big, is going to Lizard Yoga. I try and go like once or twice a week. So if you're in Austin and you want to go to class with me, let me know. I think that would be so fun. So that's been a big thing for me for spiritual wellness. Reading podcasts and books have also been a really great way to explore more of that spiritual wellness. I know that Dr. Joe Dispenza is everybody's like daddy right now. I feel like everybody is talking about Daddy Joe Dispenza. And I started listening to one of his books on Spotify. I don't know if you guys know, but you can do audiobooks on Spotify now. It's so clutch. But I've been listening to a few of his books there. I've been reading Body Keeps a Score. I went to a psychic one time, and the psychic actually recommended that I start reading that to just kind of like understand a little bit more about the body and just how it reacts to not even like big T trauma, but some of that little T trauma that we all have in our lives. And again, just connecting with other people who are like-minded, going in and being a part of community. I mean, concerts are a way of spiritual wellness for me. I love just being, I mentioned this at the top of the episode, but I love just being in space and in community with other people where the vibes are high and we're all there for the same purpose. And when you're at a concert, you are literally all there to like listen to this one or couple of individuals on stage. You're all there just like kind of being communion and unity and like celebration. And I think that like music is such a spiritual thing anyway. So that's something that's really big for me, is like just concert going, being out in community, being with other people that care about the same things that I do. So those are a few of my personal tips for how I explore wellness. Again, maybe some of these things work for you, maybe they don't. Maybe you're like not a live concert person, but you love, I don't know, what's another thing? You love fishing. Maybe you love fishing. I don't love fishing, but like Nick likes to go fish. And for him, I think that it really is just his little moment of communion with the universe when he gets to go out and fish and spend that time in nature with his loved ones, like with his family. So maybe that looks different for every person. Maybe going on walks with your friends, maybe doing a little hot girl walk is your idea of like spiritual union and unity. I think that it gets to be so unique and so different for all of us. And I think if I were to offer you any other tips or tricks or like pieces of advice, my goal would just be for you to experiment with different practices. Try yoga, try meditation, try journaling. Maybe one format, like maybe you've tried yoga, but you hated that instructor, or you hated the sound of their voice, or you hated that format. There are so many other studios and styles of yoga that maybe something else is more your jam. Maybe meditation is just not the way for you to like sit down and be in union with yourself and do some of that mental wellness stuff. But maybe you love affirmations. Maybe you love, I heard about the Superhuman app recently, and I know that they have like activations that are a little bit more high energy. Like maybe that's your cup of tea. Maybe like sitting down and like creating playlists is how you quiet your mind. There are so many other ways. Playing with your dog, going outside, putting your feet in the ground. Like there's so many other ways to explore that. I'd also recommend that every person just listen to their own mind and body. I think it's really easy for us to get caught up in comparisonitis, like I talked about earlier, comparing ourselves to what people are doing on TikTok, what our favorite influencer is doing, what our favorite like actor is doing, and trying to emulate them. But we have to realize that we are not those people. We are all so unique and individual, and we need to spend time like listening to what our bodies want. And that can be something so simple as what do you want for dinner today? Maybe you think that you need a salad with croutons or some shit. I don't know. Maybe that's what you think you need, but you stop, you take a second, you listen to yourself, and your body is like, actually, I need a steak tonight. I need to not cook, and I need to go to Kava. I need to maybe eat a bowl of popcorn and have a glass of wine. Like, listen to where you're at today. Wellness not only looks different throughout your life, like I said, 20 months ago, different person. 20 years ago, who was she? But also 20 minutes ago, 20 days ago, 20 hours ago. What I needed yesterday to like feel well in my body is not the same thing that I need today. And it won't be the same thing that I need tomorrow. And the only way I'm going to know what I need and like be able to give my body what it needs is if I stop, I take a beat, and I just listen to myself. Again, does not mean that you can't take inspiration from the people around you, from things around you, from social media, from TikTok, from the trends, for whatever is the most viral at this moment. But that doesn't mean that you have to make that truth for you. Everybody's truth gets to be something a little bit different. And I think my final thing that I will leave you with is spend more time. Honestly, I'm just going to underline, exclamation point, what I just said, which is like spend more time listening to yourself and less time playing the comparison game. I think it's really easy to just be so caught up in what's going around. And if that means that you need to curate your Instagram feed or your TikTok algorithm and stop following people that don't make you feel good about yourself, you like have full permission to do so. If you don't like the current trend of sexy, okay, there's really nothing wrong with sexy water, so I hope you do like sexy water, even if it is something silly. If you don't like HIIT, remember when we were all doing like fucking high intensity interval training and we were like busting our asses at 6 a.m. doing a full 45 to like hour and a half long workout, killing ourselves at 6 a.m. for what? Like, why did we do that? But if you still feel like that's what works for your body and you've experimented with other things and it doesn't work, you can do that. Like, you have the permission to do what feels right for your body and not compare yourself to the Pilates princess down the road. If Pilates isn't what works for your body, don't fucking do it. And I think the biggest thing is just like focus on, okay, I put this down. That straw is really cute, but it's kind of noisy. Focus on your journey. Like I said, this is a wellness journey. It's not a wellness destination. It's not a wellness pit stop, but it's your wellness journey. It's not, I have my own journey. Your sister has her own wellness journey. Like, focus on what works for you and don't worry about how it compares to somebody else's journey. Even if you think that they are behind you and you're doing so well and like look at you miles ahead on your journey and like fuck that guy, maybe like sit down, be humble, like take a second and like why are you playing a comparison game the other way? Like, why do you have to feel better than that person? And just like sit with that for a little bit. There's so much more that I could talk about when it comes to all things wellness, and I think maybe it's a really good idea for Allie and I to do one together, because then I think we can really see how our versions of wellness differ so much from one another. Like Allie's version versus my version. Like we're such different people, and the things that we need are so different, even based off of like where we are in our menstrual cycle or with work things or so many other factors. There's so much more we could talk about, but I just want to share a few of my favorite resources. I've mentioned Soul on Fire, or the Balanced Blonde on Instagram. I really love her for spiritual wellness. If you follow a few of your local yoga studios, if that's your thing. Here in Austin, like I said, I love Lizard Yoga. Talked about Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's a really big one. Body Keeps Score is another really cool piece of literature that I'm reading right now. I spent a lot of time 2 summers ago, last summer, learning about my body and cycle syncing and getting off birth control and like hormonal birth control. So the 5th vital sign is really cool there, or taking charge of your fertility. I know fertility is in the title, but like it's not for people who are like trying to get pregnant. Like there's so much more than just that. Those are all really great resources that I found. I can put a few more up on our social as well, so you can just see. And use me as a resource. If you guys ever have any questions, like just let me know. I actually started a new Instagram recently focused on all things wellness because it is something that I feel so passionately about. I'm actually starting Pilates teacher training in a couple of months. I'm really excited about that. So I'm going to be pretty active on that account, just trying to grow that a little bit and get a bit of an audience and a following going for when I do eventually start teaching. So if you ever have any questions, like please, please, please don't hesitate to ask. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I can't give you any like diagnoses or anything like that, but I can talk to you about it. I can tell you what's worked for me, and maybe we can find something that will work for you as well. All right, before we wrap up, we can't leave without doing a song of the week. And this week, my song, I actually love this song. I've been blasting it in my car. My song of the week is Famous 5 Eva by Girls 5 Eva. This is a fictional girl group from the 90s. I don't know if anybody's been watching Girls 5 Eva on Netflix. I had Allie watch it a couple of weeks ago before she left. It is truly the funniest show. They don't make 20-minute sitcoms the way they used to, and this one's so fucking funny. It's about this girl group from the 90s, like early 2000s, who were kind of one-hit wonder with their song Famous 5 Eva. Time, yada, yada, yada. It is now present day, and they've decided to get the band back together, and they're trying to relaunch their musical careers, even though now they're all in like their early 40s. It's so good. Sarah Bareilles is one of the leads. I did not know that she was so funny. I know that she's been on Broadway for the past couple of years, but man, Sarah Bareilles pops off. I love her. But yeah, my song of the week is Famous 5 Eva by Girls 5 Eva. All right, well, I will talk to you guys again next week. As always, we are so happy to have you here. Make sure that you like and subscribe. We are also on Instagram and on TikTok at Everyday Bubbly Pod. And yeah, what does wellness mean to you? How do you define wellness? How has your wellness journey changed over the past couple of years? I would love to know. I'd love to hear your tips and tricks too about there's something that you really, really love. Colostrum, that's something if you've tried colostrum, let me know. I want to know what that's like. All right, well, talk to you guys next week. Cheers!